The first thing is really identifying what's the impact you want. What do you want others to feel? What is
Amazing.
your message? What's the purpose of what you're going to say? Why do you want them to listen to you? Why should they listen to you? What is the message you're sharing? And really defining that, and really making sure that you know that inside out. Once you know that, then it helps you shape what you say and how you come across and how you show up. So a lot of it is actually defining that at the beginning. Once you've done that, it makes it so much easier to then work out the tools and tactics and the small things you can do, small things you can say that actually help others hear the message you want them to hear.
Hi, my name is Johnny Lawrence, and welcome to another episode of Life Talk, the self-development podcast. Today, I'm here with a very, very interesting chap. We've had a couple of calls recently, and quite often we overrun. So stand by. He's a global speaker. He's a global speaking coach. He's a world events MC, a virtual speaking specialist, and he's performed a TEDx talk and is now a TEDx coach. All the information he gives is extremely informative and extremely actionable. Today, I'll be speaking with Peter Hopwood. How are you, mate?
I'm doing well, my friend. All good, all good. I can't complain. Many would, but I won't. So I'm doing well. Yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Yeah, we're enjoying some sunshine in the UK at the moment, so that's always a bit of a plus, if I'm honest.
That's absolutely. As soon the sun can do so much for you when you're feeling good, it makes you feel that extra little bit better. And when you're feeling not so great about certain things, just the sunshine could it just brings you up just a little bit more, doesn't it?
It does. And people, I think, are a little bit more open to conversation, a bit more smiley and a bit more welcoming when you're not getting rained on, frankly.
You got it. Yeah. Cold, wind and rain. Not a good combination at all.
Yeah. So you're not in the UK at the moment, are you?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I mean, you've just said, for listeners, when they hear you've said that you've got some sunshine, those without sunshine, I'm sure are feeling a little bit envious. Where I am, I'm in a place, I have to say it's very sunny and very warm. Not really warm, but it's pretty warm. I'm in Split in Croatia on the Croatian coast, and it's about 15 degrees today, blue sky, a little bit mild, a little bit chilly, but yeah.
Fine. Well,
maybe not talk too much about that now.
I was going to say, in that case, it's nice to speak to you. Bye.
Short and sweet. Goodbye.
No, listen. Anyone that decides to live in a country where it's sunny all the time is just smarter than me. What can I say? It just sounds like a really good idea. Listen, tell people that might not have sort of come across you yet a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, okay. Essentially, I'm a speaker coach, a storytelling coach, a virtual speaking specialist. So I help people to essentially tell better stories, share their messages in the right way, craft their messages, and deliver them in the right way. So up until about a year ago, pretty much helping professionals, teams, CEOs, company managerial teams to share their messages in the right way, whether it be at a conference, online, an event, in the boardroom, whatever it is, show up with the right impact and the right impression. Since about a year ago, pretty much everything is been focused on helping people show up and create that right impression and share their messages in the right way online, so virtually, which is a completely different skill set in its own right. So that's what I do. I'm also a TEDx coach as well. So independent TEDx speakers hire me. They reach out to me and say, listen, Peter, I need your help to put together my ideas, craft the right story, and then tell that story in the right way. So that's pretty much, in a nutshell, me.
Well,
what I do.
What I love
what I do.
Yeah. What I love is the word impact. That seems to be something where, I've spent a bit of time looking through some of your videos and obviously reading your posts and all sorts of things. And the word that comes up a lot and the word that seems to be most important is impact. What do you mean by impact? You know, obviously,
Okay, so I think the word impact, when we hear the word impact, it could actually mean many, many different things. I think we are always creating an impact. So all our signals in what we say, how we say them, how we show up, what we wear, our hairstyle, the shirt on our backs, the flip-flops or the shoes or the flippers or the whatever we're wearing on our feet, everything creates signals, and those signals create an impact. Now, the impact I'm talking about is more about the right impact, the right impression, the perception you want people that are listening to you, looking at you, listening to your messages, to get the right impression of you and of your message, so that they can either change their perception in some way, be influenced, or be on board with your ideas in some way. So that's more about the impact that I really that I really share. So about getting people to feel differently, think differently, and help them see things perhaps they didn't see before. And you can do that, as I mentioned earlier on, through your messages, how you share those messages, and being more aware of your messages and how you portray them.
yeah, I mean, I think that's such a great way to put it, because we've all been places where we know somebody that's really animated, and you would imagine, you know, my example would be maybe a wedding. We've all got that friend who's really animated, really funny. If you see him in a bar or whatever, he's telling jokes, he's great. He gets up on stage, whoa, crickets. Something happens to him, you know, and you know he's got it in him, but for some reason he just can't get that across. And I'd imagine that's what you mean about you know, it's about content. I'm sure, you know, no one wants to listen to what they don't want to listen to, but the way you deliver it, I suspect, is massively important, and that's where the impact comes in. I'm sure.
Absolutely. And I think the first thing is really identifying what's the impact you want.
Hmm.
You know, what do you want others to feel? What is
Amazing.
your message? What's the purpose of what you're going to say? Why do you want them to listen to you? Why should they listen to you? You know,
Yeah.
what is the message you're sharing? And really defining that, and really making sure that, you know, you know that inside out. Once you know that, then it helps you shape, you know, what you say and how you come across and how you show up. So a lot of it is actually defining that at the beginning. Once you've done that, it makes it so much easier to then work out the tools and tactics and the small things you can do, small things you can say
Mm.
that actually help others hear the message you want them to hear.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's much like it is in any form of coaching, I suppose. You got to understand what you're trying to achieve in order to make a plan to get there, you know? And it sounds very much like it. And I'd imagine as well, that's quite an overlooked thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of it, when we talk about public speaking,
Mm.
if I say to you public speaking, what does that mean to you? Not necessarily you, but many of our listeners, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's the word fear, there's the word, you know, yeah, that kind of anxiety and the nerves of being in the spotlight and doing all the things. Let's say when we think of somebody who is good, who is a good speaker, who is a
Yeah.
good speaker in public, automatically we think of somebody confident. We think of somebody perhaps who is very clear on their messages, somebody maybe with charisma, somebody with a real strong presence. And yes, all these things are really important. But the thing is that all these things are attainable. All these things you can get. You don't have to have a high amount of charisma to be a good public speaker. You don't have to have a high amount of, you know, real strong presence to be a good public speaker. Because let's face it, you know, this world is made up of so many people, so many different personalities, different types, different traits, we see ourselves in all different ways.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, again, being aware of how you want to be perceived, how close, how you see yourself on stage and how others see you, and bringing those two together as close as possible and being aware of that will just help you move forward. So yeah, a lot of it is actually in the mind, in the mindset before you begin thinking about it, trying to figure out what it is you want to portray, what impression you want to give, how you're going to do it. All that comes way before the actual delivery.
Yeah.
Because the delivery is simply tasks, things you physically do. Now we can all do that, and there there are so many people on this planet that are confident, that are confident when they speak, let's say, confident when they show up at work, confident when they're, in a very professional manner, very again have got that charisma and presence. But again, it's more about the messages you share than actual the confidence. The confidence and the presence and the charisma, that can all come later. But at the beginning, it's really about that message, because at the end of the day, it's what your listeners are going to get from what you're saying, the value they're going to get. So like this our exchange now, clearly maybe not clearly, but I'm sure maybe if they've stumbled across this, perhaps not. But I guess most people would know the title of this. Most people perhaps have listened to previous episodes before, so they've got a kind of flavor of what it's about, and they're already interested in that. So at the beginning of this, you clearly, outlined pretty much what they're going to get from this, what they're going to hear from this. And outline the value as well, which is really important, because at the end of the day, as I say, it's the value that counts. No value if it's not good for them, if it's not going to give them something that they want, that they perhaps need, or perhaps make them curious, then there's no reason at all to listen. And confidence can do a lot with that. Confidence can help attract attention. But you need far more than confidence to get people to think differently, to get people to feel differently.
Yeah, I mean, I loved. I can't remember exactly which one it was, so I've watched quite a bit of your stuff. You said the audience owes you nothing, and I thought, you know what, that's such a good place to start. And I suppose that speaks to that, giving that value. What does the audience get from what you're doing? Why should they sit there and listen to you? Why? They owe you nothing. And I thought, okay, that might sound aggressive, but you're right. You're all right. Like, why should these people sit? Why shouldn't they take that time to go for a toilet
absolutely
break?
they owe you nothing. And I kind of, that phrase that was told to me many years ago, and as an MC, as a presenter working for different event organizers globally, some of the stages really big, some of them really small, all over the place. I see a lot of speakers. So it's great because I get to see speakers in action, and I get to see the good ones. I get to see the really good ones, and I get to see the really bad ones as well. And you know what? There are so many, more than you'd think. Their egos are really big, right? And so when they go out on stage, they maybe don't always think to themselves, the audience owes me nothing, right? It's almost like, I'm like, the audience are like, they're really looking forward to what I'm going to say. They're really looking forward to me. They're really looking forward to this, but at the end of the day, no, it's all about the message and all about the value. And having that idea in your mind that the audience owes you absolutely nothing reminds you that, you've got to deliver. It does not matter who you are, what company you're working for. So again, a lot of these events, tech events, I'm hosting them, managing the stage, a lot of big companies, Microsoft, Facebook, all these big companies, tech companies on the planet, when they have their speakers on stage, keynote speakers, mostly, and naturally so, you've got, lots of, all the seats are filled up, all the tickets have gone. Lots of people are there waiting to hear what these people have to say. But so often they underdeliver. Because they're not not necessarily thinking, again, the audience owes them nothing. You know, it's not, unless you are somebody like, okay, Barack Obama or Madonna or Bono or somebody where you're already, people just know what you're going to give is great.
Yeah.
They're there for that and they know that. Right. But as a speaker, we are only as good as the speech we are giving. And it doesn't matter what, if you've stood on a stage like 100 times and you get paid for it and you are a global speaker, running across the world on stages everywhere. I don't care about that. What I care about is what you're going to deliver on that stage right now for me as a listener.
I mean,
or on this screen right now.
I mean, that makes
Okay.
perfect sense to me, because I mean, if you approach the stage or your speaking gig with "I have to earn this," there's a humbleness to that I quite admire. I think that's a really nice place to start. And I can totally see how you could become quite unstuck quite quickly if you went in it with a little bit more confidence than you've maybe got. I mean, we may have jumped the gun here. I mean, I was wondering a little bit about you first. I mean, how did you get into public speaking yourself? What's your sort of personal journey?
So I many years ago, so I went to art college and finished studying at art college in Hertfordshire. I'm from Watford.
Oh, wow.
And, is that funny?
No, because I'm from originally from Hitchin.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you from Hitchin?
Yeah,
No.
yeah. That's
You're
crazy.
from Hitchin. My brother lives in Hitchin.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
My brother lives in, he lives in Hitchin.
What a small world.
Very small world, yeah. Moss Way he lives in, actually.
I actually know where that is. How crazy is that?
And oh yeah, that's right. So
Sorry.
Watford. And I had this urge to, after studying, I just felt like I wanted to discover more. I just felt there was more to what I could do perhaps abroad. Again, not feeling too confident. I wasn't a particularly confident young man. Actually, the opposite. I would say more introvert. But the creative side in me was always there, and I just had this urge to move abroad. And my father's from Londoner. My mother was French Maltese. And so I was born in Watford. Nice mix. But I mean, I always had this urge to kind of discover France a little bit more, maybe my roots in Malta. Anyway, I went abroad and I started to work for Disneyland Paris, at the Disneyland Paris resort, which just boosted up how I saw myself in terms of my confidence, because I had to improve my French and speak in French every single day in front of visitors to the park. And so that really boosted up my confidence, and sort of said to myself, yeah, actually I don't have to stay inside my shell. I can express myself a little bit more. I can do this in French. So it kind of like gave me this boost of, well, yeah, this is something different. It's kind of a skill. About 10, 15 years ago, I opened up my own company. Again, communication skills, business communication, that rolled on quite quickly to presenting. And then I kind of like all the skills I had before, bring them to the forefront, and then start helping people do the same thing. That went quickly onto pitching, and then keynote speaking. Also on behalf of event organizers, one day a gentleman asked me, listen, Peter, we need somebody to host our conference. we don't know anyone, and we think, well, we know you, will you do it? I said yes. I enjoyed it. I felt I had a flair for it. And then from then on, that developed and unfolded into something a lot bigger. And then I followed that kind of thread, and sort of became a global MC around the world. So I suppose it didn't happen by accident, but all the skills I learned back then when I was a lot younger, in terms of giving me the confidence from someone who wasn't that confident, really has helped me to today.
So what would you say are the most important things? So somebody that's got to deliver a sales pitch, someone that's got to stand up in front of a board meeting, someone that might have to do a best man speech, anybody that's got to speak publicly. If you were to sort of, I don't know, top three things, what would you say they are that are most important, and how can you work on them?
Yeah, okay. I think number one, we mentioned it earlier, the mindset. So what is
Yeah.
it you want your audience or the people listening to you, what is it you want them to feel? You know, what is it about? Okay, a best man speech. At the end of the day, that the audience are friends, family, people who know the groom or the bride. So they're there to listen to something good, to feel good, something that is maybe melancholy, something that will get them thinking, something romantic, something funny. So already that's the kind of tone. Boardroom, again, think about what it is you're sharing. Are you pitching something? Are you sharing a message which is is bad news? Is it something that's going to be controversial? Is it something that is going to uplift somebody or uplift the people in the room? How do you want them to think differently? So you walk into it with an approach. What is it you want? So you have to ask yourself all these questions, pop them down on a pad, those questions, answer them as genuinely as you can, even with somebody else as a team, and then start to describe those feelings, how you want to be perceived, what are the kind of messages, how do you want them to feel? Okay, and start using adjectives. Start using those adjectives, and once you start writing them down and thinking of them, you'll start feeling them.
I like that what you said about even the part where you said if you're delivering bad news, because there's a respect to that I quite like. What did you mean by that?
Okay, so if let's say somebody has to share a message of certain people are going to be laid off, for example, or it could be quite tough in terms of the finances looking forward, or we haven't hit our targets yet, something like that, is really being empathetic, is really trying to understand what your audience are going to feel when you tell them those messages, and what do they want you as a leader or as a manager or in the whatever role you're in. How do you how do you share those messages, and how do they want somebody in that role to share those messages?
Nice.
Yeah. So often if it's bad news, or if it's controversial, or if it's something that's not necessarily uplifting but quite urgent or important, or negative in some way, or make people anxious, you have to be really respectful of that and be really really direct. Okay, one example, it just reminded me. So when back in the day when I worked for the tour operator, a lot of it is working at airports, right? So people have had a wonderful holiday. They've 2 weeks on holiday in the sun, great tan, wonderful food, looking good, feeling good. It's all good. They're at the airport, and suddenly they see on the board there's a delay of 3 hours. A delay of 3 hours for some will be like, okay, 3 hours more. Let's have a few more cocktails, a few more beers, maybe, and it's okay. But for many, could ruin your holiday, completely ruin the whole feeling, because they want to get home, they're anxious, they're not sure if that 3 hours is going to turn into 4 hours, 5 hours, or an overnight stay. So the anxiety rises straight up in many people, and a lot of what I had to do, I had to go in. So I've said goodbye to them at the airport as they've gone through. I have to go back in there and into the departure hall. Remember, this is a time where there's no internet, well, there's no internet then, no mobile phones. So the only information they would have was from me. So my attitude changed. I went in there feeling like, I'm there to help them.
So
I'm there to give them the information.
Your approach is to so consider what you want the audience to feel, and sort of what you're saying there is you're judging the audience and you're sort of making changes as you move through what you're doing.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's more about what do your audience want?
Right.
What do they need?
Yeah. So
And they
what's
needed information quickly, they needed to be reassured, and they needed to see somebody that cares about them in this delayed situation.
so in that on that occasion, empathy was something that you had to have a lot of, I
Oh,
suspect.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thick skin and empathy.
I'd imagine you did. Blimey. What's another piece of advice?
Again, I would say your energy
Mm,
is contagious,
yeah.
right? So whatever energy level you have, how you show up, how you share your messages through your body and through what you say and how you say it, people feel that. So
Yeah.
whatever level it is, if it's a low level, if it's high energy, if it's like, again, maybe you don't care, that will come across.
Yeah.
If you're, however you're feeling, essentially however you're feeling, that will come across. So you need to define how you're feeling at the beginning. Strange thing to say,
Not
but yeah,
really. No, it makes sense.
defining how you're feeling or identifying how you're feeling, and more so, try to get a feeling that is what, again, your audience will
Yeah.
want to be engaged by, will be captivated by.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Um,
yeah, I would say the energy level definitely really, really important.
so know how you want your audience to feel. Give energy or the appropriate amount of energy. Anything else?
I think one thing that we don't necessarily think about too much,
Hmm.
or something we neglect and we haven't really figured it out too much, and a lot of us kind of walk away from it because it's we get sort of scared of it, or not scared, but we're not too impressed by it, and we don't really, we'd rather sort of put it under the carpet, and that is your voice, because your voice is so influential. Your voice is the biggest, is the strong, my biggest tool, the tool that really helps influence or share my messages in the way I want to share, and try to hit the perception in the minds of the people that are listening to me, is through my voice. It can really be a massive influencer. And
Yeah.
even more than your body language, even sometimes more than what you say.
Hmm.
Yeah, how you say something can be so influential. So
Well, that's the premise of sarcasm, isn't it? I suppose.
that's right. Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, absolutely. So taking a little bit of time to just be aware of how you sound,
Yeah.
a little bit more about how you come across.
Yeah.
Maybe ask other people, record yourself. I know most of us don't want to do that, but I tell you what, when you do that and when you start to focus on how you sound, you can actually identify areas where you can get better. And it just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of energy, a little bit of crafting to try to move that in a better direction. I'm not saying we can change our voices, but we can certainly
The tone.
change the tone
Yeah.
and the technique and how others perceive us. We can move to a different direction if we really wanted to. And I'm sure when you edit these podcasts that you do, and the other kind of videos that you do as well, Johnny, you listen, you have to hear your voice all the time.
Oh, I'm sick of
And
hearing my
so
voice.
you're probably sick of it, but I guess, I'm not guessing, I'm pretty sure when you started doing all these until today, you're more aware of your voice, and instinctively you've changed your. So how, if I was to ask you right now, how has your voice changed from today, or from when you first began to today? How would you describe the way your voice has changed, or how you approach, or how you use your voice?
I think I would probably say I've slowed down a lot more. I used to speak a lot quicker than I do now. And I'm a little bit more concise with what I say, I think, because what I used to find was I used to speak really quickly and say too much. Sometimes to the point where, in some of my early interviews, I'd be like, did that person even speak? Or did I just speak too much? So yeah, I think that's probably where I would have changed things.
Yeah, so our voice is so important, and just
Yeah.
having a little bit of awareness and actually listening to yourself
Hmm.
can make all the difference. It really, really can. Slowing down is a great tip. Not
Yeah.
slowing down all the time,
No.
but just slowing down in certain moments, letting people digest those ideas. So the less you say, often the better, because it's more powerful. And certainly in this virtual world, we have to be more concise and more, more with more clarity and more. We have to be more concise and more compact with what we say, because people don't have the time.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, that's great advice. So just to go over that again.
Yeah. So think about how people feel.
That's right.
The energy level.
That's right. Yep. Sorry.
And also the voice. Thinking about how the sounds you make that influence how people feel.
Brilliant. Such great advice. As I promised at the beginning, informative and actionable. Public speaking is something that terrifies so many people. So to get that sort of advice, and what I often find as well is when somebody has a problem or a feeling attached to something, the answer usually isn't that complicated, but people tend to overthink things. And I think that advice there would be very easy to overlook, but I think sounds fundamental to really putting together a good speech or a good talk. Just the last thing I wanted to ask your opinion on personally, really. I mean, over the last year, people have had to think on their feet, they've had to change, they've had to adapt, and they've had to overcome different challenges. Many people would have had boardrooms going into work, speaking, and it's not just boardrooms. People publicly speak in all different types of jobs and areas of life. But all of a sudden, we find ourselves speaking to each other like this. Um, People had to adjust, and it was probably a very hard adjustment, but I'm pretty sure people have now got somewhat used to doing things this way. All of a sudden, we find ourselves in the UK anyway, coming out of lockdown, and we're going back to real life. People may well have got very, very used to speaking to each other virtually in the year and a bit that we've been doing it. What adjustments should people prepare for? Because it's going to be a very different experience speaking to a screen full of faces than it is with a room full of faces. What advice would you give? Sorry, I asked you that just as you were taking a sip. Sorry.
Yeah, good question. Really good question, because you're right. Absolutely. So a lot of us have, over the last year or so, every interaction we have is on this screen here, and we've got used to that. It's become really familiar surroundings, and the actions and the nuances and how we behave in front of this screen is really, really familiar. And so when we start to go back into the real world, those of us that maybe before were not people that perhaps had so many interactions, it's going to be a little bit difficult to move to the real world and do this, try to have the same impact. But again, I think there's a lot of things that we've learned here that are really good for the real world. When I say real world, I mean
No,
what I mean.
yeah.
Because online, again, we have to be more concise, and we're more focused, and we're sharing our ideas with more clarity, because again, people's time is really important. People haven't got the time for small talk. It's all about focused. So when we go back to, let's say, speaking on a stage or in front of people, or public speaking, real public speaking, we're going to be more concise. We should be, if we stick to it, we'll be more concise, and we'll be more to the point. And all those things that we're learning and doing quite well, or trying to improve, trying to get as much engagement as we can through what we say and how we say it, and those feelings that we're trying to portray, we're going to hopefully do exactly the same thing when we actually do it in front of a crowd. So I think some of us will find it even better, because we can learn, use the things that we've learned here and put them, implement them into the real world. Whereas I think still others will find it difficult, because um, there's so even when you're going to meet somebody, right? Here we can just pretty much 5 minutes before, we can do whatever we've been doing. 5 minutes before, we can just click a button and then we're there, almost like teleported, right? In the real world, we can't do that. We need we need time to get there. We need time to, again, how fully dressed, because people will be, again, judging us by what we wear and how we behave. All we really need to do here is behave in this screen. That's it. This is the reality, the screen. You take the screen away, you've got something more. There are far more messages and signals that are beaming out. And again, being aware of those will help you. So again, being aware of those messages that you're sharing, not just on the screen, but when you're speaking in public, those really count.
I love what you just brought up there about everything that goes into a public speaking. Never would I have thought about the fact that, even before this, I could have just been having a conversation with my wife. I wander off into the studio and off I go. But if this had been recorded in the studio somewhere else, I'd have had to have traveled there. I would have interacted with different people. I could have had a good experience, a bad experience. May have forgotten something. All these different things come into play and affect you when you eventually come to make your speech. That's a really good point. Really
I also think there's this thing about the commitment.
Yeah.
There's a commitment. Okay, so again, we just join, or you're doing like 10 Zoom calls a day, whatever it is, maybe less, maybe more, maybe a webinar in there, maybe a presentation, or maybe just a call, right? Or a meeting, right? You click, you're there.
Yeah.
Right? In the real world, you have to get there. Again, you have to prepare for it. You have to look right, you have to get in the right frame of mind. And if somebody shows up for a meeting, they're there because they've invested their time to get there. They may have traveled there or stayed at an overnight hotel the night before. A whole bunch of different things, which kind of show us there's more of a commitment, or there is this idea of a commitment. Online, we don't know that level of commitment.
Yeah, you could probably get away with a lot more, couldn't you? If you were, say, ill prepared or didn't give a very good speech or whatever it is you're doing online. I suppose people look at that a bit more sympathetically because they haven't had to stay over or pay money for travel and
exactly. So one way of combating that is when you're online, the signals you're sharing and the energy you share and the intentions that you're sharing, do them a little bit more, have a little bit more oomph in there, have a little bit, boost them up slightly, because you need to get people to feel like they want to be there. It's not just one of 10 Zoom calls getting through the day, which often that's how it feels. And it may feel like that. It may actually, often it does feel like that. We've got other things, and for you as well, I'm sure for you as well, we all got our families, kids running around, so many commitments, so many things going on in our lives. And these Zoom calls kind of just popping in and out throughout the day. We really have to, in our minds, 5 minutes before at least, just get into that frame of mind, showing that the other people on the other call, on the other side of the screen or the other side of the camera, you're committed to them.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. Really good advice. I like that. Listen, Peter, it's been fabulous talking to you. I could listen to you for hours. You've got so many cool ideas and different ways of looking at things. So thank you so much for your time today. Is there any social media you'd like to tell people about? Any projects coming up? Any events you're doing?
Listen, I think if you've listened to this or you're listening to this and you want to reach out on LinkedIn, Peter Hopwood, find me there. When you reach out on a direct message, just say that you've listened to this, so I know that you've listened to this as well. I've got a few things coming up. So currently, I'm working on, over the last year or so, I've been working on really building teams. Virtual speaking skill set. So it's 3 different webinars, 60 minutes each, and they're for companies, teams that really want to boost their team's skill set online. So that's everything from the tech, how to do this logistically, how to sound good, how to look good, storytelling techniques, persuasive speech, all those things, body language, voice, all those things together to help to make sure your teams are showing up well online. So if that interests you, or if you think if you know a team that would be interested in that, or you see a team that's doing, or your team's not doing it very well at all, reach out to me and let's see if we can help.
That's amazing. Honestly, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure today. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I hope we can meet in Hitchin.
Well, that'd be good, wouldn't it? Okay, Peter, take care, mate. Thank you.
Take it easy, buddy. Bye-bye.